This is for 4.1, Lesson 1 about the Articles of Confederation. So this video, this lesson, just as a reminder, a review, we just finished the American Revolution. Okay, so America wins the war against Great Britain. They become their own independent nation. So we now have the United States of America. So when that happens, the first thing we have to do, a country has to do, is figure out how they're going to govern. What are going to be the rules for government? You have to have government, right? Because remember some of the things we talked about as far as if you don't have government, then people can do whatever they want to do, and you have anarchy. And so, of course, we don't want that. So there has to be some government. But they're also very worried about how Britain abused their power in their minds as a government, and they don't want that either. So the very first plan of government that they come up with is the Articles of Confederation. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. So the success criteria, I will be able to analyze the strengths and weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. Okay, so the Articles of Confederation, so what are they? So this was America's first constitution, okay? So it was their first plan of government. Before we ever have the Constitution, which you may know that that's what we have today, before we had that, we had the Articles of Confederation. After the war, this was our plan for how this young country is going to be governed, what the government is going to be like. Okay, now one of the trademarks of the Articles of Confederation was that it gave more power, way more power, to the states than the central government or the national government, the federal government. Okay, the federal government, so the national government, did not have very much power at all under the Articles of Confederation. Most of the power was given to the states. So why would they do that? Well, as I've already mentioned, they just got done dealing with Britain. In their mind, a powerful central government was abusing their power, and they didn't want that. They didn't want a central government to have too much power. Okay? They didn't want another dictator or a king. They're trying to stay away from that as much as possible. So that's why they gave a lot of power in the Articles of Confederation to the states. Okay, so what are some of the things the Articles of Confederation say? So let me read this part, okay? This is the actual wording in the Articles of Confederation. Each state retains its sovereignty, freedom, and independence, and every power, jurisdiction, and right, which is not by this Confederation expressly delegated to the United States in Congress assembled. Okay, so what that part is saying is every state has sovereignty, means like its power to govern. Okay, every state gets its power to govern. They get freedom, they get independence. Every state has every power and right, which is not specifically said in the articles. Like, in other words, if a power is not specifically given to the federal government, then it belongs to the states. The next paragraph, the said states hereby severally enter into a firm league of friendship with each other for their common defense, the security of their liberties, and their mutual and general welfare, binding themselves to assist each other against all force offered to or attacks made upon them. So that's saying, okay, these states, we're entering together, these 13 colonies, right, that are now states, we're entering together into a firm league of friendship. Okay, so what does that sound like? So they're just going to be like friends, right? Like we're a league of friendship. So basically they can do what they want. Each state can do what they want, but they're friends with these other states. They help each other, it says here, for their common defense, to secure their liberties, okay, and just their general welfare, just, generally how they're doing. So they're going to assist each other, but essentially they're their own independent country, really. I mean, they're their own state, but it's like they're their own country. Okay, under the Articles of Confederation, here's the things the national government can do on the left side. They can declare war. Okay, this is the national government, so not states. Under the Articles of Confederation, this is what the federal or the national government can do. They can declare war. They can make peace. They can sign treaties with other countries. They can borrow money. They can issue currency like money, and they can maintain armed forces. On the right, the things they cannot do, the federal government, is impose taxes. Okay, that's going to be important. Control foreign or domestic trade. So they can't trade, really. They can't control the trade with other nations. They cannot enforce the laws. They cannot force citizens to join the military. Okay, so if you look at those things they can't do, think about some of the problems that could cause. Okay, and that's obviously a question for you. What are some of the problems that they could have from the central government not having much power? Okay, some of the strengths and weaknesses. The strengths. So the states had a lot of power, and they had freedom and independence to do what they wanted to do. In their mind, that was a good thing. They didn't want the central government to have much power. So that was a strength. Second, Congress did not have very much power, so there was a low risk that one person could become like a king. So again, they designed it so that the federal government wouldn't have much power, so there's not much chance of one person rising to power. Some of the weaknesses. Congress could not enforce its laws, so the laws were pointless. Like, if you can't enforce laws, what's the point of laws? You got to be able to enforce it. Congress could not tax, so they could not pay for a military or pay debts. They had to have every state agree if they were going to tax, and that's next to impossible. So essentially, they couldn't tax. And then if you don't tax, remember, tax is money that citizens pay to the government. If they can't do that, then how are they going to pay for an army? How are they going to pay debts? Like, you need money, and governments get money from taxes. They could not force people to join the military. So they had a weak military and a high risk of being attacked. So look, if you can't have a military, you can't force people to join. Okay, you can't have a draft where you basically force people to join. Okay, you can't do that. So you're going to have a weak military. You can't pay for the army, really, because you can't tax. So you can start to see some of the weaknesses that the articles had. Okay, so this picture just sort of symbolizes some of the power that they don't have, that some of the weaknesses of it. Okay, so one thing we didn't talk about: there's no national court system. There's no judicial branch or courts. There's no power to enforce treaties. There's no power to raise an army. We talked about that. There's no power to collect taxes. We talked about that. Okay, so no power to enforce laws. So there's lots of problems with the Articles of Confederation. So there were some good things in their minds, that the states had a lot of power to do what they wanted to do, but the weaknesses became a problem, and you will see that as we go forward.